Welcome back to the Two-Way Report. Bump stock aficionados can finally rejoice as a Sixth Circuit panel delivered a unanimous verdict on Tuesday, April 25th, declaring that the government's ban on these rate-of-fire boosting attachments cannot be enforced. It's like a plot twist that leaves the anti-bump stock camp scratching their heads. Bump stocks weren't always a big deal until the ATF categorized them as machine guns in 2018, which is just, for lack of a better word, retarded. The Atkins Accelerator, a firearm accessory many consider to be the forerunner of today's bump stocks, was designed to increase the rate of fire of semi-automatic firearms. Invented by Jim Atkins and manufactured by Atkins Industries, it gained attention in the early 2000s. The inventor reportedly found inspiration for it while watching a documentary about World War II in 1996. The film showcased twin anti-aircraft guns firing at Japanese warplanes from a U.S. Navy ship. He teamed up with a firearms industry businessman, securing 2 letters from what was then a relatively friendly ATF affirming the legality of the device's mechanism. Encouraged by these letters, Atkins invested his personal savings into the development of the mechanism behind what would eventually be the forerunner of today's bump stocks. While it initially appeared promising, its legal status and compliance with firearm regulations became subjects of scrutiny and debate. The ATF later reversed its initial position, claiming that the device had the potential to convert a semi-automatic firearm into a fully automatic one, thereby classifying it as a machine gun. Legal challenges ensued, culminating in the 2009 ruling by the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals upholding the ATF's revised determination. As a result of the legal challenges and rulings, production and sale of the Atkins Accelerator ceased. Enter the slide-fire bump stock, a firearm accessory designed to enhance the rate of fire of semi-automatic firearms, emerged as a groundbreaking innovation in the early 2000s. Developed and popularized by Slide Fire Solutions, this accessory revolutionized the shooting experience for firearm enthusiasts. The Slide Fire bump stock can be attributed to the creative mind of Jeremiah Cottle, the founder of Slide Fire Solutions. Cottle conceptualized a device aiming to provide an accessory that could increase the firing speed of semi-automatic firearms while complying with existing regulations. The Slide Fire bump stock was first released to the public around the year 2007. It introduced a novel mechanism to achieve rapid fire. It utilized the recoil energy of the firearm to facilitate a bump firing technique. By allowing the firearm to slide back and forth within the stock, the shooter's stationary finger could engage the trigger rapidly, creating a continuous cycle of firing. This design allowed for a significantly increased rate of fire compared to traditional semi-automatic firing methods. Following its release, the Slide Fire bump stock quickly gained popularity among firearm enthusiasts. Its innovative design provided an exciting and accessible way for shooters to experience a higher rate of fire. Despite its success, the Slide Fire bump stock faced legal scrutiny and challenges. The accessory's impact on the rate of fire raised concerns about compliance with existing firearm regulations. But then came that fateful day in 2017, the Las Vegas mass shooting that sent shockwaves through the nation. Suddenly, bump stocks found themselves in the crosshair of public scrutiny. In response to public and political pressure, President Donald Trump told the ATF to review its previous determination on bump stocks. The ATF couldn't resist Donald Trump and published a final rule that expanded the definition of machine gun to include bump stocks under the NFA. The game had changed, and bump stocks were now marked with a target on their backs. Sounds familiar? Well, the ATF would repeat this years later with pistol braces, classifying them as rifles under the NFA. But we'll talk more about that later. Going back, the ATF's final rule on bump stocks rendered disposition and sale illegal. A grace period was provided for bump stock owners to either destroy or turn in their devices to law enforcement. The once popular accessory was no longer available for legal purchase or use. So, in the wake of the ATF's final ruling on bump stocks, a flurry of lawsuits flooded in, like a stampede of litigious buffaloes. Among them was a federal lawsuit filed by Scott Hardin, a Kentucky anesthesiologist and competitive shooter who took it upon himself to annihilate several bump stocks after the rule came into effect. Unfortunately for Hardin, a federal judge dismissed his complaint faster than a cheetah on roller skates, asserting that the ATF deserved the highly coveted Chevron deference. This fancy doctrine prevents judges from swapping their own opinions for an agency's reasonable interpretation of federal law. Talk about a party pooper. Meanwhile, in a related case, the gun owners of America had their arguments heard by the full Sixth Circuit. In an exceptionally rare turn of events, the court reinstated the ruling of a federal judge, giving the green light to the ban on bump stocks. Now, Hardin, in an attempt to keep his hopes afloat, argued before a Sixth Circuit panel, insisting that his case remained alive and kicking despite the gun owners of America ruling. He believed his claims had been adjudicated on their merits by a judge, not to be dismissed lightly. The opinion delivered on Tuesday by Senior U.S. Circuit Judge Ronald Gilman Bill Clinton appointee left no room for doubt. Gilman and his fellow panel judges carefully considered not only the Sixth Circuit's ruling, but also those of numerous other courts. They dove into a whopping 22 opinions, a treasure trove of legal thought spanning nearly 350 pages. Now that's dedication. Gilman made it clear that the definition of a machine gun, particularly when it comes to bump stocks, had divided reasonable jurists like rival factions in a fierce ping-pong tournament. The judge didn't bore us with the intricacies of those positions, thankfully. Instead, he emphasized that there was no unanimous consensus on whether bump stocks fell under the definition of a machine gun. One notable decision against the bump stock ban came from the Fifth Circuit based in New Orleans. In January, they ruled that the ATF had fumbled when it expanded the federal ban on machine guns to include bump stocks. They conveniently passed the baton to the district court, leaving it up to them to decide whether to block the rule. The Biden administration, never one to back down, has since appealed to the Supreme Court, hoping for a favorable turn of events. Despite all the legal back and forth, Gilman took a stand. He declared that the statutory definition of a machine gun was about as clear as mud, partly due to the conflicting judicial opinions and, let's not forget, the ATF's own somersaults in its position. However, Gilman sided with Hardin and decided to give Chevron deference a little vacation. Why? Because owning a bump stock could potentially lead to criminal penalties. And we all know that the courts love to have a say when it comes to condemning the distribution of dangerous drugs or the possession of deadly weapons. The panel argued that Chevron deference had its place in realms like securities, taxes, workplace safety, and environmental law. Fascinating areas where highly technical crimes run amok. When it comes to firearms, well, the courts feel pretty confident in their interpretive abilities. With Chevron deference off the table, Gilman invoked the rule of lenity. In simpler terms, it means that when there is ambiguity, a court should favor the criminal defendant. And in this case, that defendant was Hardin. The judge found that since the relevant statutory scheme didn't clearly and unambiguously prohibit bump stocks, he had to lean in Hardin's direction. So, the ruling now heads back to the district court, like a boomerang with a legal twist, to determine whether the ban on bump stocks should be squashed like a pesky bug. U.S. Circuit Judge John Bush, an appointee of Donald Trump, had a few words of his own to add. He stressed that it's not the ATF's job to change the law, that's Congress's job. According to Bush, under the current definition, a bump stock can't be considered a machine gun. After all, it's just a nifty contraption that uses recoil and a little push from the shooter to increase the rate of fire. Senior U.S. Circuit Judge David McGeek, appointed by George W. Bush, completed the panel, providing that extra touch of judicial pizzazz. Attorney J. Allen Cobb, co-counsel representing Hardin, was ecstatic about the Sixth Circuit's ruling. In an email statement, he made it crystal clear that the case boiled down to one simple question. Can an administrative agency like the ATF suddenly turn a legal activity into a crime, complete with criminal sanctions and the loss of freedom, without Congress stepping in? Well, according to the panel, the resounding answer was a big fat no. Ultimately, it all boiled down to the ATF's use of Chevron deference, which I talked about in another video. I'll share the link in the description below if you haven't seen it yet. But in a nutshell, the ATF, wielding the power of Chevron deference, is able to change laws without involving Congress. This stupid bump stock fiasco is simply repeating itself with the ATF's equally stupid pistol brace rule. The question is, when will the pistol brace rule be reversed? Well, it took 5 years thereabouts, so maybe we'll have to wait up to 2028 the latest before we can legally use pistol braces again. Of course, things are a lot different now. There's the Bruin Standard, and there are more pro-Second Amendment Supreme Court judges now than there were 5 years ago. So maybe we won't need to wait 5 years. And regrettably, that's all the time we have for today. If we missed anything on bump stocks, let us know in the comments. Please like, share, subscribe, and click on that little bell icon so you're always notified of future videos. Thanks for watching, and you have a good one.